Hello, Team Social Studies! It's Dr. Bradshaw. I'm so excited to see you all, at least virtually. It has been a rough couple of weeks in the Bradshaw household, and I really miss you guys because it's so much fun to be able to just kind of step away from the world and talk social studies with you all for an hour or two, and I miss that, and I miss you. So I hope you know that and that you can reach out to me if you have any questions. But I wanted to just chat with you about the topic for this week, which is being a reflective teacher. This is something that is important for all contents, but I think it's especially important for social studies because we deal with so many sensitive issues and sensitive topics that we always want to make sure that we are doing the best to promote empathy, to promote tolerance, to promote understanding, also for students to be able to analyze and strategize and question. These are sort of the building blocks of social studies education. And you can't do that unless you reflect upon your own teaching. Unless you're critical of yourself, how can you ask your students to be critical? So I wanted to just share just a couple of things with you. And I don't have a PowerPoint. You're just going to be looking at me for the next few minutes. But you want to ask your students feedback. So you guys get this wonderful survey called, Professor Evaluations at the end of the semester, where you tell me all the wonderful things that I have done, and some of the not so wonderful. And I know as a teacher, it can hurt when you hear the not so wonderful, but it really, you want to give your students opportunities to share this information with you because you want to be the best teacher for all students. So while 90% of the students may be like, this is awesome, great job, there are some students who you are not dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's for. So we want to figure out what can you do to hit more, not physically hit, but get into the sphere that you are making a difference for as many students as possible. So there's a bunch of ways you can do this. I used to give student surveys at the end of the year. I would also suggest maybe doing them at the end of the first semester. But you could do them every week or so. It doesn't really matter. It does matter, but you can make them, you don't want to make them too frequent to where the students are just like, oh God, another one of these things. But if you really get them to think about it and take their time, you can get some very meaningful feedback. So I had some of the big projects that we would do. I had this one project called Hammurabi's Court, where students would simulate a courtroom and we would put somebody on trial using Hammurabi's Code. I'd have students assess, well, how much fun did you have? But also, how much did you learn? And we talked about the difference between those two. So Hammurabi's court usually would have both. We learned a lot and we had a lot of fun. Other activities I did were a lot of fun, but we didn't maybe learn so much. I did this African safari where I'd watch Planet Earth and we'd move all the desks to the side and we'd have a bus and we'd hop on and off the tour bus and I'd wear some khaki clothes and kind of an explorer's hat, and we would go and visit all these different things. This is for 7th grade, so it was kind of little kiddie, but they meet secondary tour bus people, which were animals, because we were on a safari. So Gerald the giraffe would tell you about a certain country, and they'd have to write down facts. And they said, well, we had a lot of fun with this, but we didn't actually really learn that much. It was really kind of just a way of taking down information. And I knew that going into the lesson, but you want them to be able to distinguish those things so that you can think about, am I really promoting inquiry-based learning in this lesson? Because you always want to promote inquiry-based learning. There are simple things you can do, just thumbs up if you're getting this, thumbs down if you're not. Don't expect students to say, oh, anybody raise your hand if you don't understand, because nobody wants to be the person with their hand in the air, right? It makes you feel like you're dumb and you're stupid. Or another thing is yes, with my ELL students, do you understand? Yes. Well, yes is, again, they're trying to please you. So don't just trust the yeses. Think about other ways that you can evaluate. Of course, you have tests and assessments and things like that, but think about ways that they can give you feedback. So thumbs up, thumbs down. You have digital resources, kind of like the thing that you used with Dr. Cannon last week, where students type out responses. Those are great. There are too many of them for me to know all of their names, but I'm sure that you guys are already seeing them in your classrooms. You could do it the old school way, which is like a parking lot. Have an area in your classroom like a poster board and write parking lot, and have sticky notes where students can just write, I really like this, or this I'm not so sure on. You could do it for a topic for the week, or you could do it for a certain lesson, or just anything like that you have a concern about. Ticket out the doors are also good for, especially for content feedback, on like, did you understand this lesson? But they can also be used of, tell me something you're excited about this weekend, or tell me something you're nervous about this weekend. Just to get to know your students, because you always want to build those relationships. So think about the different ways that you can get feedback from your students. Another thing that you want to think about reflection as a teacher is, just because it's old doesn't necessarily mean it's good. So like, if you had a lesson that you have done for a couple of years, and you're like, oh, well, I've done this, and it's we've done it several years in a row, but that doesn't mean that it was good any of those years. So don't be afraid to change things, but also don't be afraid to, what am I trying to say? You guys want to try new things, but, think about the things we've talked about of like, am I teaching this appropriately? So don't just go totally off the wall. Everything's going to be a simulation, because we don't need that. But we also want you to feel like the joy that comes from being in control of your own classroom, and having that authority to, you know what, I'm not going to do that lesson plan anymore. I'm going to come up with something new and creative and engaging, and it's going to be awesome. And you're going to do that many times over, as long as you don't go with the, oh, well, it's old, so it must be good. Next. So when you're a new teacher, this is something you're going to do. Like, I can't do this because my kids, blah, 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 fill in the blank, My kids won't behave. My kids don't know English. My kids have learning disabilities. My kids don't have access to technology. You can have all of these things where you are putting all of the responsibility on the children, but you also have responsibility as a teacher. So it doesn't matter what they're coming in there with, you have the responsibility of making sure that they are, you're taking them from that spot to another level, okay? And I promise you, I had every excuse in the book my first year teaching of why I sucked. I mean, I was just terrible. I was a terrible first year teacher. And it came to the end of the year where I was like, okay, I just need to start over. Just need to start over and try again. Because I knew that at that point, it was really just kind of, I had made so many mistakes. And it's okay to make mistakes as long as you think about how you can change that and how you can improve upon that. You guys got my coffee cup here? Sorry. Very proud of this. Okay, so think about ways that you can improve. So if your students need English support, think about ways that you can provide English support. If your students are jumping all over the place, you need to think about how you can improve your classroom management so that you can get your class to the point where you guys can do all these engaging activities, or if they're all over the place, you don't really have that, that privilege to do so. All right, and remember, hang on a second, I'm gonna pause this to drink. Okay, hopefully that worked. Mistakes are part of this journey. You are going to make mistakes. You are going to make pedagogical mistakes. I can tell you all sorts of things that I taught. I mean, literally, I found out, like, 6 years after teaching a subject, that I had been teaching the wrong information. Not just like teaching it inappropriately, not the best, not the sensitive, but like the wrong information about one thing. Like completely telling them something that was false. Own it and move on. Okay? And the way that you're going to get better with classroom management, with pedagogy, with building relationships is through experience, but also through seeking out additional resources. And I'm not talking about teacher-paid teachers, okay? I'm talking about talking with fellow teachers, joining things like National Council for the Social Studies, Georgia Council for the Social Studies. You can do stuff for free and just simply join some like groups on social media that for certain contents. Like I'm a member of a Georgia Studies group that has so much amazing resources and just, you know, helping like, hey, how do you teach this in a way that does this, you know, and people give suggestions, and just finding that community support is so important. Your school may have a mentor. If it, like a mentor, a new teacher mentor program, and that will be wonderful. I can tell you, my mentor teacher saved my career my first year because I was so terrible at teaching that I found out she schooled me very quickly on how to survive, because I understood the content. I understood how to write a lesson plan, but I did not understand classroom management. So remembering that you are going to make mistakes, but as long as you get away from the, well, my students can't do this, and think about what can you do, you are going to survive this, okay? And I wanted to share with you one final thing. So I normally at this point read from my first year teacher journal because I wanted to have a journal that reflected what I went through and how I interacted with my students. Unfortunately, I left that in my office since I'm working from home. But I can tell you it was just like, oh, well, I'm really excited and really nervous, and I messed up taking attendance, but everybody survived, and it was really fun. There's no air conditioning in my classroom, so that's a problem. And then literally it ends in the middle of a sentence. Like, not I forgot the punctuation. I mean, it just ends. And that was the only journal entry. It was one day. I couldn't even finish one day of journaling because I was so exhausted. You are going to be so tired. It will get better because you won't always have to start from scratch. Okay? But I know right now you're thinking this is so hard. Oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? I hate to say this, but next year is going to be really hard too. You won't have me bossing you around and telling you what to do. You'll have administrators. And you'll have students because you're there for them. And it's going to be a long ride, but you will get good at it. Give yourself 3 years, okay? 3 years. And at the end of 3 years, if you're still like, yeah, okay, maybe try and see if you can go to another school. But, you know, do what you can to take care of yourself. But know that this is a journey. And if you keep reflecting, you're going to get better and better and better and better at it. And I want you all to email me when you are nominated as the Teacher of the Year, because I know that you have that in you. And just don't be afraid to look at yourself and say, what could I have done better? Because we all can do things better all the time. Personally, this semester has been, I think, the most challenging one I've ever had, with all the stuff that's just happened to me personally as well as in my career. So I know I can do things better. You guys are probably thinking about what can you do better as a student right now. I'm sure you can do things, but you know what? We're going to learn from it. Don't think about the bad. Move forward. I feel like I'm kind of rambling here a little bit, but I just want you to know that I got your back. You can ask me questions even after you leave my classroom. I'm here for you. I love Team Social Studies. Bye!